And hello everybody, Timothy here. Good afternoon, ladies, gentlemen, and everything in between. It's been a long wait this weekend for some more spoilers to come out, and they did not skimp on the spoilers today, trust me. I haven't seen all of them. There are a couple commons and uncommons that just got released or spoiled and put up on Mythic Spoiler a little while ago, like literally minutes ago, I think, and we're going to go ahead and look at those. So I've seen most of these, but not all of them. And then super exciting stuff towards the end of this video. So if you haven't checked out spoilers today, go do it immediately. Go look on Magic Online's articles and read Mark Rosewater's article for today, because it is fantastic announcement for people like me. I think I'm looking a little rough here, but that's the school day for you. Anyway, they've got the basics on here. Doesn't look like we have all of them, but as always, one of my favorite things to do, and you kind of neglect this when you're drafting or playing Magic, is like sometimes you just have to stop and appreciate the art on like these basics. This is amazing. Like, they're always amazing, but in particular, new art for lands just throws me off. Like, it's just beautiful art. I don't think they're all of them, because there are 3 mountains here for some reason, but only 2 swamps, 3 forests, but only 2 swamps, 2 mountains, and a couple plains. The islands in particular look amazing. Like, in foil, these islands are going to be great. And the swamp too, like the like twisting patterns and everything, they're really, really cool. So I appreciate them quite a bit. And then just go ahead and look at the plains that we have here. Again, super awesome. In particular, I really like this one. But yeah, basics. There you go. Moving on to cards that I actually have to talk about and explain things and try to wrap my head around. Starting off with Tool Shaper Paradigm. Interesting name. But this is 1 white for a 1/1 Dwarf Artificer. Notice it's a rare. Usually that's a signal that you're getting some sort of relevant aggressive ability if you have a 1/1 rare for 1. But the ability here, at the beginning of your combat step, if you control an artifact, Tool Shaper Paradigm, or whatever this guy's name is, gains +2/+1 until end of turn. If you control at least 3 artifacts, it gains first strike until end of turn. So the best curve you can think of here is turn 1 this, turn 2 artifact, and then just slam a couple artifacts on turn 3 to give it first strike. This will often get in for 3 damage on turn 2 if you play your cards right, but after that it drops off a little bit unless you're playing a super heavy artifact deck. There is still a lot of potential, I think, in the red-white kind of artifact theme in Standard, with cards like Stitcher's Graph being actually much stronger than people give them credit for. Potentially things like Captain's Claws and stuff like that. But if they keep pushing it, and it just barely misses out. But with cards like this and Sigarda's Aid, I think there's a shell to be had. I don't really know what it is. I've experimented with it a little myself. In fact, I think I posted a standard deck tech on it, or at least what I was playing. But honestly, the deck doesn't pan out very well compared to just stronger decks. Like, it has to get in there. It can steal some games, but oftentimes it struggles. But if it is a real thing, this guy will very likely be part of it. It just gets big really quick. 3/2. And then it scales up to a first striker, so it's going to win combat. But compared to something like Grimflayer, Sylvan Advocate, those cards just get bigger and have a much more relevant body and don't require you to do very much else other than what your deck's trying to do as is. So this is kind of a very niche card for artifact-based decks, but I don't know, if there's a white artifact-based deck, like, that's obviously going to see play in it. But other than that, not super crazy about it. In Limited, a little less excited about having this as my rare, because it does require you to build around it a little bit. You need cheap artifacts to really make it worth your while. But that shouldn't be too hard to do. And at the very least, you can use it to like crew vehicles. But at the same time, if you control vehicles, then this guy gets his power boost. So I don't know how to evaluate the card yet. It's not something I'd be excited about opening on pre-release. I don't think I'd be super stoked to play it, but if I knew I was going to make a white aggressive build, I would look to play those cheap artifacts to turn it on, so to speak. If you haven't already, go check out Tolarian Community College's video. I love the professor. I love his videos. When he gets a spoiler, he puts a lot of work into it. And his card today was Electrostatic Pummeler, a 3-mana 1/1 rare. Again, when you see a 1/1 on your rare, like, you care about the ability, not the body. But you've got an artifact creature construct. When it enters the battlefield, you get 3 energy counters, and at any point you may pay 3 energy counters and give him +X till end of turn, where X is its power. Obviously, this needs a little work for it to get off of the ground, but there are ways to do that. As mentioned in the Professor's video, there is a common in this set that gives +4/+4 in trample, which I think only costs 2 mana, and that's a huge boost if you're doubling it. Like 3 energy counters to double it to a 10/10 trample, and then if you have the extra energy floating around, like a 20/20 trample, it doubles each time. It's exponential. So it doesn't just add 1 extra power. If you're just using this ability to make him a 2/2, like, get it out of your deck. It's not good. If you don't have other ways to generate energy, or you don't have ways to actually boost this guy's power, it gets a lot worse. So things like equipment and auras are the way to go. Pump spells are good, but don't give you a permanent effect on the board. You're looking to try and win the game with this, or use it as your finisher, or stockpile a bunch of pumps and use it to just get in there and bring your opponent to near death at least. So this card has a lot of potential. Again, it's a little bit of a build around, not much, but 3 energy counters seems like a lot more than 2 energy counters. The fact that you get at least 1 pump out of him is pretty nice, but you do need to build your deck in a way that you can actually take advantage of this. He just doesn't jam in any deck and expect for his ability to pay for itself. You need to be able to generate more energy and have the cards to actually back it up. Red Gearhole. Been waiting for this card for a while because this cycle is ridiculous, and this one does not disappoint. Combustible Gearhole. Pretty cool name. I really like the names on them. 4 double red for a 6/6 mythic rare artifact creature. It is a construct like the rest, and it has first strike, which is not irrelevant on big creatures. It means that they're not dying to like death touchers, and it's a lot harder to multi-block them and take them off the board. When this one enters the battlefield, target opponent may have you draw 3 cards. If they do not, you may put the top 3 cards of your library, or I'm sorry, it's not a may. You put the top 3 cards of your library into your graveyard, and then it deals damage to the player equal to the total mana cost of those cards. So your opponent's taking a bit of a gamble here. Either they're going to let you draw 3 cards, which is fantastic. Like a 6/6 first striker for 6 mana that draws you 3 cards when it enters the battlefield is crazy. Like, that's nuts. That's all of the good sides of Bedlam Reveler without having to go through the hoops of making it less expensive and building around it and discarding your hand. Like, this guy just draws you 3 cards. And if he doesn't, you have the potential to deal a massive amount of damage to your opponent while still having your 6/6 first striker. So even if you hit like 1 land and maybe a couple 3 mana spells, like that's 6 damage tacked onto this for an ETB trigger, which is pretty crazy. A lot of times I imagine people will give you the card draw because they'll be scared of how your deck's set up. If I were playing personally and I knew that a game was really close, I would probably opt to take the damage, because those 3 extra cards in red, like that could be all your opponent needs to just burn you out or something like that. And it's like, what is it? Sin Prodder from Shadows over Innistrad, but ×3 and immediately. It's just, it's really devastating effect. I'm never going to be happy to see this come down on my opponent's side of the field. Like, it's just super strong. So, the card's great. The whole cycle's great. Haven't seen them all. I think blue is probably, honestly, I think green is probably the worst, which sounds ridiculous because it's an 8/8 for 5, but it's the least unique effect, as opposed to the most like inherently powerful. The blue one's probably pretty close, being very narrow, but blue, the thing I really like about the blue one is that it's very good in blue decks as like just a huge creature with a relevant ability for blue. And they're all good. The white, black, and red ones are insane. I think the black one is hands down the best, but I would have to think about the white and red one here if I were to rank them in order. I think it's pretty close. Moving on. I have not seen the next couple cards here. So, Consulate Surveillance is the next on the list. Again, haven't seen it. It's 3 and a white for an uncommon enchantment. When it enters the battlefield, you get 4 energy counters. That's a lot. And then you may pay 2 energy counters, prevent all damage that would be dealt to you this turn by a source of your choice. All right, I was about to get super excited, and then it said by a source of your choice, so I'm less excited now. I'm a huge advocate for fogs. especially one-sided fogs, but just fogging a single creature or a single source is a little less exciting. What this does do is stop like burn spells pretty nicely, so you just, if your opponent tries to burn you out, or maybe even in standard, like using a Hiri's Wrath or something like that, or Radiant Flames, or any kind of massive board wipe, you can prevent the damage from it. Now that I say that, like, this might be sideboard tech against Kozilek's Return for things like Spirit decks, because it stops the damage from Kozilek's Return, which is really good. But on its own, I don't think it does enough. Another interesting thing is that it just makes 4 energy counters, so if that's relevant in your white deck, then this could be a little more relevant, but I really want to prevent that damage. Am I looking to main board this card? I don't really know. My initial reaction is this is probably a sideboard card against things that are people who have like big creatures or burn spells in general, but I could see main boarding it and just using it a couple times to fog some damage from particular sources. It makes combat really difficult for your opponent. I don't know, maybe it's stronger than I'm giving it credit for. I keep thinking of new scenarios, but like if you just enter combat and you attack with a bunch of things, like your opponent has to know that you can prevent damage from a couple of their creatures if they go to block. And that makes combat really, really miserable for them. So I don't know, maybe it's a little bit better. If you can generate more mana, or I'm sorry, more energy counters over time, it definitely increases the viability of the card. Moving on to Glint Nest Crane. Does not get the crane creature type, unfortunately, that I've been waiting for. 1 and a blue for an uncommon 1/3 flyer. When it enters the battlefield, look at the top 4 cards of your library. You may reveal an artifact card from among them and put it into your hand. Put the rest onto the bottom of your library in any order. So this is like Fairy Mechanist, kind of, on a smaller body, I think? Maybe. I think that's a 4-mana 2/2, but not entirely sure. This seems like a fine card. 1/3 flyers have been a lot better than I give them credit for in most of the formats, and it really depends on how the formats shake up. If creatures are relatively small sizes in the early game, then these flyers, these 1/3s, get a lot better, but it depends on how the format plays out. If you can ever hit an artifact off this is fantastic. Like, it's just a 2-drop that blocks well and then digs you into another card. A relevant card too, so super, super cool. Not much to say about it. The body will, definitely be determined, like, well, let me try that again. The body will be relevant, maybe, depending on how the format plays out, but it is card advantage, and looking at top 4 is pretty good odds of hitting if you have at least a good number of artifacts in your deck. Moving on to Blossoming Defense. I love the color in this set. It's fantastic. But this looks like conspiracy art. Anyway, Blossoming Defense is 1 green for an instant uncommon. Target creature you control gets +2/+2 and hexproof until end of turn. So is this a strict upgrade to Ranger's Guile? Ranger's Guile is right down here. +1/+1 and gains hexproof. Yes. Yes, I love Ranger's Guile. Like, you just get somebody with it every time. Like, people super underestimate the ability to like just give something hexproof at instant speed. Like, it ensures that if you're going for like a big lethal attack or something, you just have backup. And +2/+2 is not relevant, like irrelevant either. That's actually a pretty strong boost on a 1-mana card that gives hexproof. Think Woodcutter's Grit. Like, all the examples I'm rattling off are just right down here. Glint was a little bit disappointing because it doesn't give a power boost, but a cheaper Woodcutter's Grit almost achieves the same kind of effect, but for much less mana, and like this is just great. This is just fantastic. This is an example of a good combat trick, because the +2/+2 is relevant enough to make you win a particular combat between creatures, and the hexproof is enough to help you survive against removal or targeted abilities. So it's just versatile enough that it's the type of card I like to hold in my hand until I'm going for the win, and then just have it as backup. Maybe that's a personal bias of mine, but I am biased towards hexproof in general. It's a very, very strong ability to have on a creature, even for a turn. So there you go. Moving on, Contraband Kingpin. What a name. Blue and black for a 1/4 Aetherborn Rogue. It is an uncommon with lifelink. Whenever an artifact enters the battlefield under your control, scry 1. Okay, that's pretty neat. The body is pretty good for 2 mana. 1/4 lifelink is okay. It's not anything to write home about, but it is still going to hold the fort down very, very early and threaten to, get some life swinging in there. And then the scry ability on artifacts seems sweet. Also an Aetherborn. I think this is the second Aetherborn that we've seen. They're aligned with black and I guess blue as well now. But this card seems fine. I would draft it pretty highly. It's, as with most of these uncommon gold cards, it is probably a good sign that blue and black is open if that ends up being a good color combination. I think this card is perfectly reasonable. Maybe a little bit less good than a card like Geist of the Archives. Is it down here? Is it down here? No, there's nothing in the thesaurus. But something that just casually scries on your upkeep but has like no power is probably a little bit better because you're always going to get that scry. But what this makes up for in consistently scrying turn after turn is that it actually has the ability to do damage. And the lifelink is not irrelevant either. Even lifelink on 1-power creatures is not terrible. So it seems sweet. I definitely like it. I'm a big fan of Dimir. It's kind of my go-to. Prakata Club Security. What? Prakata Club Security. 3/4 for 4. Common Aetherborn Warrior, vanilla. It's rare that a Prakata Club closes its doors. It's also rare that Lord Gonti meets with Consul Kambal. What are the odds the two would occur on the same day? Ooh, fancy. Some story stuff there that I don't know about. This card is fine. It's just a bouncer. It's a 3/4 bouncer for 4 in black. That body's not bad at all. A 4-mana 3/4 is perfectly reasonable, considering how many like 4-mana 3/3s you get in typical sets with like a little bit of an upside ability. The downside here is that it doesn't do anything. It's just a curve filler, so it seems like a solid card that you would add to a lot of your black decks, but perfectly cuttable if your card quality is really high. I'm not a big fan of playing vanilla creatures, but I will if they fit my curve nicely. Lawless Broker. Lawless Broker. 2 and a black for a 3/2 Aetherborn Rogue at common. When it dies, put a 1/1 counter on target creature you control. Okay, this is fine. 3 mana 3/2 is great. Perfectly fine for limited. Exactly what you're looking for. And value when it dies seems great as well. This is essentially like as close as you're going to get to the black version of Byway Courier from Shadows over Innistrad, right? A 3/2 for 3 that gives you some sort of value when it dies. Byway Courier being probably a little bit better because it essentially draws you a card at some point in the game. 1/1 counter is probably weaker than a card in most scenarios, but that's not a bad thing to have either, especially if like you toss it on a lifelink or like say a 1/4 lifelink or turn it into a 2/5. That makes it much better. So this card seems solid as well, and it is a common, so you can pick these up. I can see this being one of the stronger black commons. It trades really well and it gives you value for trading. So when the set comes out, I'll have my eye on this guy. Here's what the most exciting thing I think about today's spoilers, and I know a lot of people are going to groan and be like, oh, they're doing this again, but this, in my opinion, is super sweet. So let's just look at these cards real quick, and you'll notice right away, like, this is flashy. I'm going to make it simple here. These are expeditions for Kaladesh, and as per Mark Rosewalder's article today, in case you didn't read it, we can expect these from every set going forward, every standard block set going forward. So, for instance, Kaladesh, I believe they said, have 30 of these. The same rarity as Expeditions, the same kind of rules as Expeditions from Battle for Zendikar, where 1 in like every 6 boxes or 1 in every 140, 150 booster packs will have one of these, slightly rarer than a foil mythic rare, which is already pretty rare as is, and they'll be like included in the packs and so on and so forth. So there are 30 of these in this set. There are, I think he said 24 in Aether Revolt, the next set that comes out, and then they intend to do this moving forward for any standard sets in the near future. So you know what expeditions are. They're alternate art versions of cards that already exist. They may be cards that are included in that actual set. For instance, Verdurous, whatever. V Gearhole is in Kaladesh, so it's also getting a what do they call them? What are the names? Masterpiece. It's part of the Masterpiece series. There's a Masterpiece version of V-Gearhole that is available as well. So you can see, like, we can probably expect all the other Gearholes to have a version. You have Hangerback Walker, which won't be in standard anymore, and they follow the same rules. You can play them in any format where they're currently legal, but that doesn't necessarily make them standard playable. So Gearhole will be a standard legal card when that actual card comes out, and that means you can play this guy in standard. Whereas Hangerback Walker will be rotating out of standard, and you may no longer play this version in standard. However, if you pull it in limited, in draft, or sealed, you're more than welcome to play it. Gauntlet of Power, Mana Crypt, same kind of idea. You can play them in any format where they're currently legal. Same as Expeditions. Pretty much the same exact thing. Now, a couple things about it. First off, we're expecting this in every set moving forward, or at least in the near future. The number of, I should have just pulled the article off. I'm just going off the top of my head here, but the number of Masterpiece items or whatever cards in each set will be determined whenever that set comes out. So just because we're getting 30 in this set doesn't mean every large block will have 30. I think right now it is limited to artifacts, which means you can expect like tons of artifacts to get reprinted at this rarity. Like Mana Crypts, they just reprinted Mana Crypt in Eternal Masters, and it was like a huge deal. The fact that they're doing it here lends to me believing that you'll see all sorts of like crazy cards reprinted. They said that the cards will match the flavor of the set too. So the example that Mark Rosewater gave is Umezawa's Jite could definitely be reprinted as a masterpiece, but definitely not on Kaladesh because the flavor wouldn't make any sense. Whereas something like Hangerback Walker makes perfect sense on Kaladesh, since that's where the flavor of Hangerback Walker came from in the first place. So if we ever go back to like a Kamigawa-based set or something like that, you might see Umezawa's Jite and stuff like that. If we ever go to a new Phyrexian set, you might see Batterskull, but it would be very unlikely to see something like that in Kaladesh or Aether Revolt unless the flavor calls for it. Anything else important? Yeah, a couple more things. They are full art. They're foil, or not full art, but you know, this kind of art. They're foil. I believe they said each set will have a different border on it. So even though the cards will look a little bit different, they'll be the art will be kind of tampered with to match the flavor of the set that they come out in. They will all belong to a set known as the Masterpieces. Or is that right? I'm not entirely sure. You should look it up for yourself. But I believe they said, yeah, never mind. They will all belong to a set called the Masterpieces. Kind of the same way all of the Expeditions form their own set, even though they were released across two different sets, Battle for Zendikar and Oath. In this case, there's this huge set called the Masterpiece Collection, and each new standard set that comes out will add more pieces to the Masterpiece Collection, but in this case they're called Inventions. So the Kaladesh version of the Masterpiece set is called the Kaladesh Inventions, and then there might be a new name for Aether Revolt, and so on and so forth going forward. So when we get to Amonkhet, or Amonkhet, or whatever the next block set is, there will be masterpieces from Amonkhet, but they will match the flavor and they'll have a different name other than Inventions. So really, really cool. Also, the set symbol is different for each block, I believe. Maybe each set, I'm not sure. So a lot of cool things here. Was not expecting anything like this at all. I know a lot of people predicted that Shadows over Innistrad might have something that mimicked the Expeditions, because the Expeditions were a huge success. They're great. They're awesome. They look fantastic. They're amazing to play. They're amazing to open. They get people to buy the product. And honestly, that's what's going on here. Is like Wizards wants people to buy. That's how they make their profits. But this is going to cause the same kind of craze as Expeditions, maybe a little bit less, because you know Expeditions had fetches and stuff like that, wastelands, things that people were really looking for. But there's something for everybody here, and it looks fantastic. It just means you know, collectors have a lot of work set out for them, and the rarity is still really, really high on them. So if you buy a booster box, like, you may not even get one of these out of an entire booster box. It's supposed to be like one in every case or something like that, from what I hear or what I read. But yeah, they're fantastic. They look absolutely stunning. Like, they look great, but they're going to be in foil too, so like they'll look even greater in person. And I'm just excited that they're a thing. I love alternate art cards in general. I love foils. I love any kind of like way to make your deck more appealing or more flashy. I'm a big fan of it. So I know, like I said, some people are going to groan and be like, oh, well, here's Wizards trying to make people buy more product. Like, what's wrong with that? There's nothing wrong with that. No one's forcing you to buy this item. Like, you don't have to collect these or anything like that. So they're just a nice little incentive. They make opening booster packs more fun. Like, I normally get store credit when I win something at a store, but when there's this kind of a lure in the pack, this kind of like temptation to get one of these cards, or at least, you know, play the lottery and try to get one of these cards, like, I just, you know, you open more packs. You want to open more packs. So I think it's awesome. I'm curious to hear what everybody has to say about them. I don't think there's really a lot of negative things that you can say about them. Like, maybe you don't like the art, maybe it's too flashy, something like that. But that's your opinion, and I have my opinion, and we're allowed to disagree here. But I don't necessarily think it's a bad idea. I am curious to see how like it carries on to other sets, how like they change up the border and stuff like that. So that ought to be really interesting. But go read the article for yourself, figure it all out. But it looks amazing. Anyway, I think that's all here. I'm going to go and refresh the page just in case there are a couple other cards that maybe have been spoiled since I started the video. And it doesn't look like it. We just got our bouncer here. But anyway, thank you guys for watching. I'm going to go ahead and call this a video since we're out of cards to talk about. There will probably be a good number of cards spoiled by the end of this. And I'll also ask you guys, go check out the video I'm posting this week on my Eldritch Moon top picks for commons and uncommons. I'm reevaluating the set, looking back at how I originally evaluated the set before pre-release, and seeing how I did on guessing what would be the top commons and uncommons. And no spoilers, but I did an okay job. But go check it out and let me know what you think. Anyway, thanks for watching, guys. My name's Timothy, and yeah, go buy yourself some booster packs in a couple weeks. All right, catch you guys next time.